You're currently watching The Vomitorium. You can support the show at www.streamlabs.com/Vomitorium Live. Enjoy the show! explode into a big, big cacophony of moths any minute now. Good thing you're watching the Vomitorium, or else you wouldn't know this. You can support the show at www.streamlabs.com/Vomitorium Live. Good luck in the apocalypse!
and the dev's playing it right now on Steam.
We're like super small. I forgot Dillard was on here last time. Let me fix this real quick. There we go. No, that's not it. That's the full screen. There we go.
Sort of. There we go. Oh.
Yeah.
I'm watching the delay.
Yeah. Well, welcome to Game Central Junction, everyone. As always, I'm your host, The Metal, and joining me is my co-host, Marsupial Gamer. If at any point you even remotely like the show, feel a little tingle, share it with somebody else who might like it, damn it. And if you really enjoy the show, it's more than just a tingle, consider giving a donation to the Soda Fund at streamlabs.com/vomitoriumlive. Really helps me out, particularly about the show in general. And with that said, how you doing today?
I'm doing okay. I had a lot of coffee and various substances to wake me up, so none of which are illegal or severely addictive, so yeah, I should be good.
Excellent. I've got good old reliable Pepsi Cola with real sugar. That should keep me awake, because my sleep was interrupted yet again, not as early as it was last time. Because last time I was up, I think yesterday, when I was on the Matriarchy, by the time I was on there, I had been awake for like 30 hours. Because I didn't know people were coming over to clean the place so that they could start, the next day they could take pictures to try to lure in the next unsuspecting tenants after we are gone from here. And today they took the pictures. I just didn't know when they were I knew they were showing up today, so I tried to go to sleep as early as my body would let me, but I didn't know how early they were coming. But yeah, I didn't know they were coming at all yesterday. So I was on my normal sleep schedule, and they showed up before I went to sleep. So I was just up that entire time. Yeah.
Ooh.
And then
I wasn't particularly...
hit, like, the second wind, and you're just like, I'm just not even fucking tired anymore.
Yeah, I wasn't particularly like sleep deprived, but yeah, I took an antihistamine that's supposed to be non-drowsy, and it just knocked me out for 12 hours, and here I am.
Got regulars, Good Night Spoon and Fizz Chozo in the chat. Thank you guys for joining us. Good Night Spoon has I'm going to assume a sarcastic question. Bruh, do you even code? He does. I can slightly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm competent in it. I can understand it, but I never really got competent.
Yeah.
But that's what you do for a living, so.
Yeah, well, I see he doesn't like JSON, comma separated value files, I guess, and GD script. So
I like
that's
JSON.
why I would suggest. That's why I would suggest learning JavaScript / ECMAScript.
I like JSON because you can
C#
just like compartmentalize it into individual files and just pull it back later. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's funny. My company's software, in some places in the database, they have XML that has JSON in it, and I'm like, why didn't you just do this all in JSON?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't understand. Because like you're gonna have to parse it twice if you want to get the data out. It's kind of odd. We're also using a very weird open source database that we're trying to get off of, switch over to Postgres.
That just sounds like what coding for a company is, right? It's like, hey, this would be a more efficient way to do it. No, this is the way we're doing it. Just do it that way.
Yeah. Well, luckily we're kind of the new people that they've hired recently. Yep. They've kind of given us leave to correct whatever we feel we should correct. They're not married to anything. They're just because they hired 3 very senior developers, me and 2 other guys, and kind of to come in and help them sort of get back on, I guess, standards, industry standards, and that sort of thing. And I'm like, let's drop all the XML, only all of it though. Let's just do only JSON when we're going to store,
it's
a
like
bunch of data.
the hiring equivalent of rent to own, right? It's like we're going to hire in fixers, but we want fixers that are just going to stay on as permanent employees. So after they fix the problem, they're just going to continue to make things better.
Yeah. You kind of got it. Like in this company and the one previous, I don't think hiring consultants would be a good idea because, I've been here for what, 7 or 8 months maybe, and I still don't. It's taking that long to sort of train us on this system, so it's not going to be cost effective to try and bring in actual consultants. So, yeah, happy to have a full-time job.
Yeah. So,
but anyway.
Fischozo actually has something brought up. I don't think we mentioned that this was happening, though. I remember him bringing it up in the last, I think, gaming show chat, that a new Little Nightmares is being made. And he wants to know, where could the story even go? I don't think that's the proper question. I want to rephrase that question with a single word, is where should the story even go? Because realistically, the story could go anywhere, right? Like, they've got the freedom to do it. But based on what happened last time, where should the story go? And I'm not too sure. Personally, I wouldn't do what they're doing, which is reprising the main character. I probably would have just told a new story in a similar style with a new character. I think that would have been better for storytelling, but they're reprising it exactly. So that's what makes it harsher. Like, where are you going to go with the same character?
I'm not sure I understand. I'm not sure. I don't even know the story. I mean, I know there's a little girl in a rain slicker and just avoid stuff. I didn't know there was a story.
There is one. It's kind of a story in the classic way that like platformers have a story, where you kind of just go through and you experience it firsthand rather than a narrative being told to you.
Yeah, and I haven't finished it, so I don't really know what's going on. We do have
see
newish speaker in the audience, or a viewer in the audience, Dragon Spooker, welcome.
Which I will let in if he wants to stick around after we actually get into some of the topics. So I was struggling to find an actual article to pin it down, but I do remember kind of what I want to talk about today. It's just it happened like last week, so findings a comprehensive list. It's buried backwards in all this stuff. And I wanted to talk about some of the stuff that happened with the Xbox showcase involving the Summer Games Fest, because widely I was pretty disappointed in it. And normally I don't give a shit about the Xbox showcase. Like, occasionally there's something cool here and there in it, but it's just like, eh. This one, I'm disappointed because there's stuff that should be cool, but it isn't. Right?
Yeah.
And there's only one thing that didn't disappoint me, and it was the fact that, like, Gears of War still just looks like Gears of War, which is perfectly fine. I'm not a super fan of the Gears of War franchise, but I think it's always been solid. I've enjoyed playing them every time I've played them. So it's like, it's pretty hard to fuck up. But we would say that about a lot of these game franchises. Like, you have to go out of your way to fuck up, and they somehow go out of their way to fuck them up. But that one looks fine from what I've seen. I'd have to see more, but it mostly looks fine.
Hey, they get to announce, Activision Blizzard stuff.
They do. They get to announce all of that whenever they want now.
Oops. Yeah.
But it's one of their older purchases that is particularly bothering me. And it is Rare's Perfect Dark. And my problem with
it is being done by Rare.
No, it's not being done by Rare, and it doesn't look like Perfect Dark. Yeah.
Speaking of things that don't look like they should, maybe I don't know if this was in this particular showcase, but God, we got to talk at some point about Dragon Age. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, that was a big disappointment. That was in this showcase.
Holy crap.
It's not a Microsoft.
Oh, it was.
It's EA, but it was in the same what's it called? Summer Games Fest stream as it.
Yeah, it was in the Xbox showcase. Yeah. Whew. But anyway, Perfect Dark.
Yeah.
So I'm not all that familiar with it. I did think that the main character looked a little funky. What's her name? Joanna.
Yeah, and part of it is it's being made by the Initiative and Crystal Dynamics, which Crystal Dynamics used to make a lot of good stuff, like back in the day. They're also responsible for like that horrible Marvel Live Service game, and all that. So like, I don't think Crystal Dynamics is probably a good company to go to remaster any of your games. But basically, we want to go like the history. Perfect Dark came about because Rare lost the James Bond license right after GoldenEye. They wanted to make a follow-up to GoldenEye. They didn't have the license, so they just kind of like took the concept to it and made their own game. And it's kind of wacky. They got to lean a little more into like the sci-fi and thriller like themes that you couldn't if you wanted to stay true to James Bond. And stuff like that, and it was really cool. There's a couple little fantasy elements in there too. I like Perfect Dark. And because they didn't have to work with James Bond as the main character, they got to make a really sexy, like almost femme fatale looking spy to be the main character, which was a big seller for the game, and it was fun. Very stylized. More so than the game it came from, right? Because James Bond wasn't stylized. They were trying to make the characters look as much like you could make a real person look on the 64 at the time. But they went more into like that Rare style going into Perfect Dark by comparison. They did the exact opposite.
And it definitely puts... Yeah. It puts a lie to the notion that gamers don't want female protagonists. Like, they do if they're done well.
Yes, Fizchoso. James Bond did have sci-fi elements, especially earlier on. That's why I said they leaned more into the sci-fi elements with Perfect Dark, because they weren't held back by staying true to the James Bond world. Yeah, they took gameplay right from Man It Demon Stone. I'm just looking at what Dragon Spooker's saying in the chat. They took gameplay right from D&D Demon Stone. But yeah, it was a very fun game, especially back on the 64. And they put out a full gameplay trailer for it. And it's weird. So it's the next chapter of Perfect Dark so they're rebooting this series. At first I thought it was a remake, but it's just a reboot. It's supposed to be a continuation of it. From what I'm saying. I think the confusing part is they're just calling it Perfect Dark. But this wouldn't be the first time that the reboot of a series that continues it has the same name. I mean, look at God of War did it recently. Mortal Kombat did it before. Like, a bunch of series have done that.
Yeah.
But they just put out a gameplay trailer. The gameplay doesn't look fun. It looks too modern shootery, which I get it. Perfect Dark was trying to be what was a first-person shooter at the time, just like James Bond was what a first-person shooter was at the time. We're talking pre-Halo here. But that doesn't mean you should modernize it to what a first-person shooter is now. I think you should stylize it more. Maybe lean more into what Rare did well with their stuff. Even looking at Jet Force Gemini when you are aiming in first-person in that game, though that's widely a third-person shooter. But it just looks dull.
Yeah.
It looks like they took the life out of it. And yeah, no, Joanna doesn't really look like Joanna.
Did you know there was a Perfect Dark Game Boy Color game?
I'm aware of it, never played it.
It was not a first-person shooter.
Yeah.
Or maybe there were first-person elements. Yeah, it looks like there were some first-person scenes, but no, it was mostly
like you could probably go Doom-like if
down.
You were Game Boy Advance. I think Game Boy, just because of RAM limitations more than anything, would be the issue with even going Doom-like on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just looking at the series because, that was Perfect Dark Zero. I guess for Xbox or Xbox 360. And then there was another one just called Perfect Dark in 2010. Oh, it's a remaster of the original on the Xbox Series X. No. That's
You know,
I'm confused.
yeah, Fitzjoseph says
No, that was
the
a
Game Boy
Xbox
Advance was an FPS. Yes. But the Game Boy Advance had enough RAM that you could do a Doom game on it, right? Like the Game Boy Advance is basically just a portable Super Nintendo, right? That's functionally what it is, just with less buttons. The original Game Boy, though, has less RAM than the NES had, right? Like there was a huge jump between the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance. You could make a Doom game on it. I've seen people port at a single level of Doom to things with even less specs, but it would be really, really bad and have to be really limited in size as well.
Yeah. I don't know if you could get the music very good.
Yeah.
They had trouble getting the Doom music on, what was modern hardware at the time.
Yeah, and people do stuff like that retroactively, but also the chips, like the cartridges that they're making are the same like the NES cartridges, where you can make a game you couldn't have made on the original NES because it's serving as like more RAM itself in the cartridge, or like they're using the cartridge to make up for the components.
Yeah, you could practically build, you could make a cartridge that essentially has its own CPU, GPU that runs modern stuff and just sends a signal.
Yeah, you put like a whole little processor in there, and
which you couldn't do while that was a current machine.
Biggest complaint: the title. Perfect Dark had such a good fucking logo. This one just looks awful. It looks like a Watch Dogs or something style logo. Like it's the most bland shooter of the year logo you could possibly put. And like, why not just reuse?
They didn't even
logo?
use. Yeah, they didn't really use the Perfect Dark font.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, Perfect Dark Zero didn't either, but the 2010 remake did, or the remaster or whatever that was. Yeah. I don't know. It's not, the thing is, it's not going to have its own identity anymore because it's being remade by people who don't appreciate the original, obviously, and don't care and have no creativity.
Yeah, so they're trying to mix first-person shooters, immersive sims, and stealth action. Is the three types of things. Personally, too, it's Joanna. And I'm not even going to criticize the way this character looks. If this was a different game, she'd be fine. It's just the fact that she doesn't look like Joanna. Really, you know what you could have done is just go find an older image of Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow, like in the first Avengers or Iron Man 2, I think is when she showed up, and you literally could have just used that as a model to craft a 3D model on, right?
Well, weirdly, like it depends on the angle. Like she looks different depending on.
She kind of reminds me
part of the trailer you look at.
FemShep, like an older version of Female Shepherd from Mass Effect, is what she looks like in there. And I'm like, would FemShep be the worst model for Joanna if you were changing the style? No, but it still just doesn't fit. They're not the same character.
I mean, I will say that they didn't make her look absolutely ugly.
No.
So that's good, I guess. I mean, that's an improvement
But they also
from a lot of
changed
other
the outfit and everything, and it feels like they have a character they want, and it wasn't Joanna. They're just putting this character in, I don't even want to say a skin suit because she doesn't look like her. It's in a name suit, right? A monogram. They have this, this nomenclature, this name for this character. They're kind of shoving it in, but they have a different character they want to work with.
Can I share?
Yeah. We could even let Dragon for a little bit if we want. Now that we've gotten started. Let me...
Absolutely.
Just for a
Feed
bit.
around. Hey, man.
Hello, my green skins.
Hello.
Hello.
Let me,
Hey.
Just making sure I'm not getting the registered signal here because it acts a little weird. Okay. I think I can hear you guys.
Okay, cool. And you sound fine.
We hear you.
Okay.
I'm just waiting for the video to go full screen here.
Yeah. I was trying to find it.
Yeah, as for the Dragon Age, look up Demon Stone D&D. It looks
Yeah, I
eerily
looked at that.
similar to a really old game. Like, it really does.
Yeah, we'll get more into
Yeah, it
Dragon
looks like-
Age after Perfect Dark 2, because I do want to bitch about that a little bit, because I like Dragon
Yeah,
Age
no problem.
a lot.
Were you
the
saying
old-
that Dragon Age took the gameplay from the D&D game, or
Yeah,
Perfect
it really
Dark?
did.
Oh, okay.
No, Perfect Dark. Oh my God, what the hell?
Yeah. So like the only thing that even
Oh,
remotely
just-
looks the same about her is the hair color, right? Like sure, she kind of had a sweep,
Yeah.
and it is kind of like blonder in the front.
I mean,
like
it
she
looks like
highlighted
it looks like Sigourney Weaver.
a little.
Kinda.
Let me say, it kind of looks
Like-
like,
like
an
if
older,
you're-
more matured version of Femshep from Mass Effect.
They
No,
gave her like a
like it-
cleft chin.
Yeah, she has a cleft
Mhm.
chin.
It's like,
Now this
okay,
is
so-
also a really bad angle too for showing off any woman's
Yeah.
jaw.
Okay.
She does look a
But it's
little
like, you
better
know-
head on.
No,
they
thank
designers
goodness.
nowadays,
Mhm.
they're like, okay, let's take a man and give her a female haircut.
Praise be to Grumsh. I didn't decide to do this for the podcast last week on Flophouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean the
this-
gameplay looks pretty fun, sort of.
There's
But I'm not
aspects
familiar
of
with
it,
the original.
right?
Like this looks like an interesting idea. Like if you
Looks
had an
good,
open world Perfect Dark
Yeah,
and you took elements of Mirror's image.
Like
that-
Mirror's Edge.
was this what the?
Yeah, Mirror's Edge. I apologize. I keep wanting to say Mirror Image.
Yeah.
Different game.
Yeah, and it also looks like it's
Yeah.
got like a little bit of like Watchdog in it, which would explain the inspiration for the logo.
Mm.
It doesn't feel enough like Perfect Dark. It's got some aspects, but it does definitely feel like they had a different
Mirror's
game
Edge.
they wanted to make, and like
Yeah,
Mirror's
this
Edge.
looks
Yeah.
exactly like Mirror's Edge. Yeah,
Yeah.
Which I enjoy.
before-
The movement, which I'm not dissing. I loved Mirror's Edge. That was
Yeah.
an amazing game.
I would just want this to be a different game. I don't want it to be Perfect Dark. That's my biggest problem with it.
Yeah, like if they just almost like if they hadn't called it Perfect Dark, it almost would be. I don't know if it would have gotten any criticism at all. Doesn't look bad to me. But was this what the original game was like? That's my
No.
question.
No,
Yeah.
The Mirrors game
this
was
is-
widely just
like-
GoldenEye 2.
well, they tried the way it works the best was the way they elemented it. It was you were kind of living in a pseudo even though it was a normal world, it was non-fantasy/fantasy, and it's
Yeah.
Like,
It
I
was,
kinda like that. Yeah,
Kind of
the
almost urban,
non-sci-fi.
like
Yeah.
low urban fantasy. There were some elements of sci-fi, but like
Sorry,
they leaned a
sci-fi.
little-
I apologize. not
yeah, a
fantasy.
little more into it than James Bond usually does because they had the freedom
Yeah.
of working with
Mhm.
the original property. But it was
And
like you
aliens
were the
and
only
stuff,
one
yeah.
interacting with this. Everybody else was going on their lives for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a cyber soldier. And she's having AI imagery problems, and
It's funny, like the way things used to be is like, yeah, if you're going to take an IP, you were kind of limited and constrained by the rules of that IP. Nowadays, it's like the opposite, and I'm realizing that it was better the way it was because now it's like, oh, we're going to take an IP and we're going to completely change it, probably
Well,
ruin it.
riddle me this:
Mhm.
why not just call this
Let me
like
see.
Beyond's Edge or something like that, or some
Yeah.
order? Yeah. Just don't use
Right.
Perfect Dark because you're competing with a franchise that they butcher.
Oops.
Like everyone remembers Midriff Dark.
Yeah. or give it some weird name like Infraction or something like that, and you'd probably be fine.
Yeah. Like this would look good. Like it's a little reminds me a lot of the other side stuff I've seen over the years, but no, sorry about that. But yeah, no, it does have that kind of energy to it. And
I kind of just wanted to see what the original was
yeah.
like.
Oh, it was a really fun game. It was also one of the games that required the RAM expansion pack.
Yep. It was one of seven games before the N64, if I remember correctly, actually needed the RAM pack.
Yeah.
It needed it, or just
Yeah.
No,
you
it
actually,
needed it.
Part of it was, I think this one specifically had a memory leak problem that was solved by the RAM pack.
Oh,
And they were aware of
Just like
that
the Donkey
before
Kong
release,
game.
and that was their solution. It was like, hey, just
What was
the
it
RAM.
there? I'm trying to remember now. Donkey Kong.
Which had a memory leak
Yeah,
in it. That was their
DK64.
solution to it.
Yeah. Jet Force Gemini, I believe. You needed it technically to cause a freezing issue to stop.
Yeah, you could play it without it, but there were definitely spots where the game would just crash if you didn't, and luckily I just already owned it before.
oh, look at her there.
Yeah, like she had a more. I don't remember the mod. Did they actually get an actual actress model for this one? If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, this is actually based off somebody. I just can't remember who it was. I think one of the Zeldas needed it.
I
can't
think
remember.
Majora's
Majora's
Mask
Mask.
required it, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
It's a hard thing. I can't exactly remember everything. I love the N64. I still think it's an amazing console that kind of got screwed out.
Well, there was a game we didn't get over here until the GameCube that required it. Debutsu no Mori Animal Crossing needed both the clock attachment underneath and the RAM pack inside.
Yeah, we didn't get that till later. And I'm still pissed that we never did get a continuation to Ogre Battle 64. Like,
Yeah.
that fucker ends on a cliffhanger.
I'm gonna stop streaming just so you know.
But no, this was such a fun game. I always liked it more than what's it called? Golden.
Yeah, it was exciting. It was exciting, right? And it was a fun little franchise, and it had a lot of interesting stuff to it. And it's sad to see like Perfect Dark. I don't know what's going on with that. Like this, I think if they were smart, I wouldn't touch Perfect Dark and maybe just leave it alone. Maybe come back with a couple like a remaster of the original game and just drop it there. It's one of those games that people are going to be too aggressive about. It's like Dragon Age, for example. You can't win with doing something totally different at Dragon Age. Too many people like Dragon Age.
Good Night
I don't know.
The only thing people remember about Perfect Dark is Elvis the alien. I think people remember more than that, but that's definitely one of the most memorable things.
Yeah.
Oh, it really is. Well, that game was phenomenal. Same with Turok. I know Night Dive did a phenomenal, and they're never going to diss Night Dive Studios. Guys are fucking. Pardon my language. I gotta stop swearing.
No, it's fine.
Guys are. No, Marsupial knows me. I swear way too much.
I swear enough on the show too. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah. So, Turok, Night Dive Studio did an amazing job, but I still every once in a while, my buddy pops out the old N64 and we'll sit there and play Turok. And we'll just hand the control over to each other.
Is actually one of those examples of an earlier thing that did not have to respect the IP that it was, because it's almost nothing like the the comic.
Who remembers the IP? Yeah. No, who remembers not even the comic? Who remembers the original radio show of Turok?
Yeah.
Or I'm a fan of the original Turok stuff. I actually started listening to it after the fact, and it's a phenomenal little thing. But it's who remembers Dinosaur Land? Or
I abandoned the chat when you started to shit talk Jet Force Gemini. Who was shit talking Jet Force Gemini? That's actually probably my favorite N64 game.
Oh, I love Jet Force Gemini. Yeah, who's shit talking Jet Force Gemini? I love that game.
Maybe he's replying to a different live stream.
No.
I've
been demanding they make a new one. Drop everything else. Screw Perfect Dark. Rare, just make a new Jet Force Gemini like the old one.
Actually, speaking about that, Nintendo has the rights to Jet Force Gemini.
Do they?
And there's been some. Yes, they do.
Because it was in the Rare replay.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's interesting because they have the rights to it as well. Because it is apparently one of their titles that they technically own. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe they'll finally give up the rights.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well,
I'd love another Jet Force Gemini.
I will say, as a Perfect Dark normie, not a fan of the original, just never played it, but I thought the new one looked kind of good, actually. I don't know.
Oh no, it
Like,
looks good.
I'd heard.
No, it looks good, but you're competing with. I agree with it. Like you're competing with something that people are going to instantly go, okay, well that's my game.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm also
And
going to take a step back. I think it looks mid, but that's only because I've played Mirror's Edge, both the original and the sequel to it, and I need to see more than just what they showed to sell me on it looks good, right? It looks kind of tired, and it doesn't look. It looks graphically better, but it doesn't look mechanically better than the thing that they're inspired from.
Yeah, but I still want some more Mirror's Edge. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say it kind of looks like they took, Perfect Dark crossed with Mirror's Edge, crossed with a little bit of maybe Metal Gear. Like, it looked like there was some stealth stuff in there. It's like.
Yeah.
I don't know. It
They
doesn't.
did say they
I
want
think they
stealth.
took the only.
Yeah.
They took away some of its identity and just kind of made it a mishmash of different games.
Oh, he said I said it had a memory leak. No. I said the original version of Perfect Dark had a memory leak. Donkey Kong had a memory leak. We said that Jet Force Gemini and I had spots where it would crash, like where it would freeze.
Yeah, it has a freezing issue. You'll get a higher. Well, okay. It all depends on what expansion pack. It all depends on what you put in there, because there was apparently. I don't know what it was with Jet Force, because Jet Force is a solid game. Don't diss me. That's probably one of the best rare games of that generation. Other than, like, I would say, like, if you were to count the best rare games of that generation, they were all N64 titles.
Oh yeah.
Like, you got Perfect Dark, which is really good. Donkey Kong Country, which is really, really good, but it's a mash handle of insanity, that one. Then you get the
I've actually
then
got
you get
very
Jet
hot
Force.
takes on Donkey Kong 64.
Oh, I understand. Some people really hate that one, and some people love that one.
My problem is it
mainly,
feels like it's 5 different games on the same map. It doesn't feel like the characters are integrated with each other.
Yeah, you're. I'm not going to deny that. I agree.
Yeah, I watched the playthrough of it. It's like,
which Banjo-Tooie is like one of the best games. I know some people like the first one, and I think as a linear experience is a much more solid experience, but just like the stuff you get to do in Tooie is just out there and over the wall.
Okay, hot take. I'm not a fan of Banjo-Tooie compared to Donkey Kong Country, but that's only because, I didn't play Banjo-Tooie originally. It was something that I played later in life. I think I'd be a bigger fan if I had able to get a copy. Yeah, I think it would be more. It'd be a love letter.
Yeah.
Like I can still sit down and play Donkey Kong Country if I decide to play. Pick up a Switch, the Switch market stuff. I can still play that. I'm still pissed off that we got stuck to this play as you go bull crap that companies are trying to push. Oh, I hate that.
I played Conquer when it was new, and I will still shit talk that game. I love it, but I will still shit talk it.
Yeah, I like Conquer because it was like unique, but I agree, it's a little bit of crap.
I think the Edge is really what sold that, but aside from that, even control-wise, it is the worst controlled rare game. It was one of the earlier ones on the system too, but for the system, it has.
Well, Edge can work. Look at Manhunt. Manhunt, the original Manhunt that's all it is.
No, I think
edginess.
the Edge works. That's why I said the edginess sells it, right? Yeah. That it makes up for the bad controls and everything.
Yeah, I know, but Edge, you don't need to have bad controls in Edge. That's what I'm trying to say. You could get like I said, Manhunt is surprisingly addictive. And it's one of the few Rockstar games I actually get
I don't disagree.
Playing.
My thing I'm just saying is you're gonna have a game that has Edge that would be good whether it was there or not, and then you have a game that like Conquer that is kind of only good because of the stylization and the humor.
Yeah, because there's quite a few games where they play by that Edge thing. Like anybody remember the Beavis and Butthead garbage that existed back in the day? That's all that is Edge, and it's just like, oh. And the thing is, you could have made a good Beavis and Butthead game later on. Like there was nothing stopping people from doing that, but they were like, well, we don't really need to put the effort in. And let's just have a guy puking out tickets and all this other weird stuff. It's just not fun, not as fun as it could be. So I wanted to ask you boys, because I know a couple of you guys are a little bit better with computers. I have a conspiracy theory for you and your chat and everybody else. Put on your
Okay, we'll do
tinfoil
that,
hats.
and then we'll move on to Dragon Age. What's your theory?
Okay, my conspiracy theory. What do you think about? Here's my theory. You know how we're seeing stuff like, Call of Duty having over like 300 gigs of data and all these other type of stuff that have these massive data ports. My theory is the idea is to force people to stop wanting to put games on their consoles and force them to just do an online only service. And that's why we're seeing these weird compiling stuff, because you don't see the same thing with indie games.
I would give credence to that if I thought that these developers were more competent. I really think it's more of a lack of care and a competency issue than anything.
Yeah, because look at the biggest game I've ever had to install was Ark, and it was ginormous. It was like half a terabyte. It's insane. And it's online only.
Yeah, and that doesn't make a lick of sense when something's that online. And again, and at any time they could just dump that, and you still have 500 gigs of data. What the fuck? That's nuts.
We can flesh it out more, because Fischos was like, you can easily compress game files. Yes and no. Files can be easily compressed, but when you compress things, there are potential problems that happen with it, which means you also need your team to go back in and make sure everything compressed properly and still works with each other, which is extra time. This is why I'm saying it mostly leads to a lack of care and a competency issue, because that's less like reverse editorial work you have to do if you just leave everything uncompressed in the first place.
Okay,
yeah,
well,
you have to program in a way that it will work with the uncompressed or compressed, images.
Yeah.
The same way, and that requires some competence.
Okay, because I had a buddy look into the Call of Duty stuff. He's been looking into some of the data, and he says a lot of a majority of the assets are the same assets from the other Call of Duty. So it's like, well, wait a minute. Why is this so fat? This is 300. I think it was 350 or 300 gigs. I think he said, and I'm like, that is fat. That is really, really fat. And I was just like, that doesn't make sense. If you already have the assets ready to go, why not just compress them? Or, magic here, put it on a disc or something else that doesn't need.
I think that's like one of the advantages of the way Nintendo's doing it, because their cartridges can hold up to I think 2 terabytes or what they're designed to, and the system can even handle. They can handle SD cards up to 2 terabytes. Like that's what the system was programmed to do.
Oh my lord!
Before that was a single terabyte card was accessible to the public. But they don't do that. Like most of their games, I think their biggest game is like 25 gigs that Nintendo puts out themselves.
No Man's Sky, I think, is 15.
Well, I mean, there's other people that have bigger games, and the cartridge can hold it. But I'm talking about like Nintendo first-party games. I think the biggest game after DLC is somewhere around like 25 to 28 gigs. They have a habit of compressing things. It's actually a culture there that was installed by Iwata back when he was running the place. In fact, Iwata is the perfect example of the difficulty and the competency required in shrinking games, right? There's this great story about Pokemon Gold and Silver, which almost didn't come out. It was running late, and they were having trouble fitting the base version of the game onto the cartridge, right? Just the Johto half. Kanto wasn't even in the picture at the time. And Iwata went over there to see what the problem was. He went through all of their code, and when he optimized it, he managed to shrink it down so much that they could fit the entire original game map from Red and Blue in it too. So they made a second campaign to the game on release. Like they just put it in there with it. But it's competency.
If we're we are in trouble if this is the level of competency that's coming out of stuff like that.
I think we can
That's a
look at how
bad
the
sign.
games are made and how not fun most AAA games are, and kind of understand the general competency issue going on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like I said, the only reason I bought a Switch was for the old video games. Like, I'm playing Dragon Age Dark Alliance 2 just because, hey, and I heard if they release Champions of Norath, if the compilation collection of that, I'm playing that definitely. But I highly doubt that's ever coming out.
Yeah. Joseph says nowadays every Call of Duty game requires a launcher. Yeah, and if you're gonna have a launcher like that too, you might as well make most of the assets online. Like, if you have to log in, if you have to connect, you have to play online, you might as well make it to where a lot of the assets are online, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, just make it to where the only thing that's local is maybe a mesh of the map. Because if the textures are blurry, that's not really going to bother the gameplay. As long as you can interact with the map, you can see your opponents and everything, and you can see where walls are supposed to be, you're fine. If your internet's too bad and fails to load the texture of the map, it's not going to stop you, as long as the mesh and everything is there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I just wanted to ask because that was something that I was fascinated by, and I wanted to ask people to actually have a little more programming knowledge. Like, it also comes up with the whole eradication of Im's Lair and other stuff that's been happening recently, and it's just like, it just seems like something's going on that my tinfoil hat's firmly on my head. I'm starting to wrap tinfoil around my body and getting ready for the mothership. So,
well, I don't think. Yeah, I mean, if anybody had an idea to like force people to play games they don't want to play, I don't think that's going to work too well.
Well, more of like the whole streaming stuff that they're trying to move to, where like the game is entirely online.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I don't think.
Oh, you're saying even single player games?
Yeah.
That's
I don't think
that's what they're doing.
I don't think they need an excuse for that, though, right? Like, I understand it's easier if we just like slowly nudge people over so they're less reactive to it. But if they just want to do it, they'll do it, because that's the type of people that are in the industry. Yeah. And if it'll crash, and maybe they'll bounce back because if they realize enough people don't want it, but they'll just keep trying it until it works, because we've seen them trying to do that with literally everything else.
And I doubt like trying to use up drive space is going to be very effective, because like this, it's getting so cheap. This is a 4 terabyte drive that was like $125. It's like, that's 4 terabytes right there.
And if anything,
right? Yeah.
The people who push the industry, which are actually the console makers, right? Like Sony and Microsoft are the ones that encourage the AAA studios specifically to do things. They would be more incentivized to not go to streaming and to not compress things for a different reason, and that's to sell more proprietary hard drive space that people have to buy.
Plus, it costs them money to run servers.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's kind of I've always considered video game companies to be and video games as a whole, the whole community and everything that's going on in video games to be the coal and the canary in the mine. Like, video games were the first ones to say no refunds, and that's become more of a major thing around everything now.
Yeah,
Steam has gone the other way.
Steam went. Certain companies did do that. You are right, but I'm saying that this no refunds. Oh, you can't. We're going to make it so that you can't own this. You got to own that. They pushed for that in video games before they pushed it for anything else, like streaming services and other stuff. The whole censoring stuff that's been going on, that was heavily pushed in consoles before it was pushed anywhere else.
Well, so video games actually is place number 2, and people don't pay attention too much to place number 1, especially because it's one of the oldest industries, and it's one of the few ones where you can still kind of easily get physical copies of things, but they've been pushing for digital for a long time now, and that's the book publishing industry. You want to talk about the canary in the coal mine? Everything is tried in the book publishing industry first, and that's because those publishers are some of the greediest people who want to save as much money as possible. And like, hey, if we can print less books and still sell them for the same price, because you notice it took a while at first, like a lot of other industries, the publishing companies were trying to sell ebooks for the same price as a physical book that you had to hold in your hands.
Yeah, they have been for years. Yeah, and D&D, for good example, Dungeons and Dragons has had a I've had firsthand experience of the cult that is 5e players in the 5e
Oh god,
industry,
I fucking hate 5e.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and
That was one of
second,
the rules when we were making an electronic version of the 5e player's guide. One of the rules that was in our contract was it has to be the same price as the physical book.
And that's bullshit, considering the fact that a physical book is actually.
And that was in 2015.
Yep. It's been bad for a while now. Like I said, I've had firsthand experience with it with Dungeons and Dragons, and like I always tell people, join the cult of Gygax, play second edition.
I like
think-
first, second, and I'll even play like AD&D. You know, like those are all fun. The older ones.
Yeah.
But I would say this is the reason why games are getting so huge. Because they're like, why bother? It's extra effort to try and compress.
By
and make
next
sure
year, we're just going to have 10
works.
terabyte hard drives anyway, so...
Yeah.
But it seems
Like,
like
what
a
do we
level
care?
of laziness that, I'm like most of the games I have on my Switch right now. Like I have an occasional put on Minecraft for a buddy of mine when he comes over and plays. I've filled this thing up with over 30, 40 games, and I'm ready to rock. I have like this amazing collection of games now that I've picked up, and it's like, well, like if I was to try to put any of these top AAA titles, it's like, wow, that's an entire hard drive gone. Yeah, no, thanks. I think I'll spend my money on the indie games that are only like 3 gigs because they're properly compressed.
Oh yeah, like all my games on my Switch, anything that is actually well, it's a D&D Beyond. It's basically one D&D is what they were going to call it, but they kind of just want a forever D&D going forward. Beyond is a website.
No,
that's
it's coming.
with,
It's coming, boys. I got a couple friends of mine that I've talked to that work in the industry. You don't want to. I would suggest there's quite a few sites out there. Second edition is old enough that it's all technically free.
Well, that's
it's old enough, boys.
The original first edition, right before the split and everything, is actually just technically public domain. The way that it works, because there's nobody who holds.
It all is public domain. Second edition is now public domain. Third will be public domain in like 3 years from now, I think. The final collection of third edition. But the problem is that's why they, if you remember correctly, they relaunched all these D&D books. Is them trying to extend it, and they weren't allowed to extend it. So even though they want to block stuff like Oriental Adventures and other D&D stuff, you can find all that stuff, and there's a lot of content out there that don't any of the indoctrinated what were they called? What were the ones who were indoctrinated in Dark Crystal? What were they called again? Anyone remember?
Oh, dude, it's been so long since I've seen Dark Crystal.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it now. But if you have any of those white-eyed individuals walk up to you and go, 5e has more stuff than any other edition, do you know it doesn't? It's all been made by the fans. And speaking about stuff that was made for D&D, Dragon Age.
Yeah.
Dragon
all I was
Age
going to say is
the first Dragon Age was D&D, was it not? Like that was actually supposed to be a Dungeons and Dragons title?
More or less. It's definitely its own thing, but there's definitely a lot of hard influence from Dungeons and Dragons in the first Dragon Age. It was basically, it's BioWare. And you're like, we're doing some stuff with sci-fi over in Mass Effect. If we want to do a fantasy thing at the same time, obviously we're going to take inspiration from D&D.
Well, from what I heard, the little bird told me a long time ago, it was a YouTuber, if I remember correctly. He said that it was legit at one time. This game Dragon Age was supposed to be a reference to was like a third edition game, but then it got dropped at the last minute, and they just took it and ran with it.
It would have been in the time of 3.5 when they started developing. Yeah.
Sounds about right. That's typical of...
Which I still love 3.5, specifically because like math is a really good... And rules, having a lot of hard rules is a good gatekeeper from tourists. And there is probably no rule set that has more math and more just bizarre rules you have to learn in order to play it properly than the extension to 3rd edition.
I don't know. Second edition still scares players. I still to this day.
Is that what they call? Is that what they call 3.5?
Yeah, it was third edition, and then they had all this extension stuff. Instead of coming out with a new edition, which they eventually came out with 4, they came out with an extended version, and so 3.5 is basically just third extended.
And then they dropped a lot of it.
And that's what they based Pathfinder on, right? 3.5.
Yeah, more or less.
No, Pathfinder is an amalgamation of 3.5 and 4th. They took some of the rules of 4th edition. And
the stuff they actually liked.
Both. Yeah.
But like exactly, 4th edition mostly turned them off, and that's why they made something. Like we like some of this stuff, but we also preferred some of the stuff that was in 3.5. So we're just gonna make our own thing.
Yeah, and they just kept going. And Pathfinder's a phenomenal edition. I'm not gonna diss Pathfinder. I think they did their own thing, and I think they did a good job.
Yeah, Elder Scrolls was also originally basically a D&D homebrew. A lot of these series, like, you go play the original Final Fantasy, compared to all the other stuff.
That is... Oh, sorry. Go ahead. But that is not true. Elder Scrolls was not a D&D collection of something. That has been passed around for a long time.
Oh, is it not?
It has been disputed by the creators of Elder Scrolls that they were playing D&D, but it had nothing to do with D&D at the time.
Okay. Well, obviously I would take their words for it, especially I think Fischoso Solus, we got some news on Wayward Realms, which I haven't checked in on a while, but I've been waiting for Wayward Realms.
It's fascinating with that, with Dungeons, like the stories of D&D, like the Gary Gygax and all the drugs and oh my lord, that the world that he created and the things that other people created using that world, it's amazing in a lot of ways. I've always kind of respected Gary for what he
There's
did,
a lot
and the boys that took it.
A lot of games that are basically just homebrew D&D games, more or less, right? Like, going back to the original Final Fantasy, a lot of people see what Final Fantasy is now, or even what it was 20, 30 years ago, and it very quickly developed its own kind of like theme, its own voice as a franchise, especially leaning more into like the hyper fantasy mixed with sci-fi elements. But the original, the most sci-fi thing they really had was there was this floating castle that had war machines in it from like a bygone era. So maybe there were advanced things in the past, but this current one isn't, which is why both Final Fantasy and Bastard had influences on each other going back and forth over the years.
Yeah. I don't know much about Final Fantasy, but I can tell you Record of Lodoss War is a direct inspiration from D&D because it is so connected. Like, I actually did a video, shameless plug, on that. And when I started reading up on more and more into Record of Lodoss War as a TV show,
it's a good one.
I was like, wow. It is fast. Well, first season.
I think it's still fine.
No, first season's really good. But first season is such a D&D game, you can tell. And they even use a lot of the artwork for Record of Lodoss War is in the old D&D books. Like, I was very surprised at the more I digged in that rabbit hole, like, the more TSR played with Dungeons and Dragons and vice versa in Japan. And Japan was actually quite popular at one point, and it helped inspire stuff like Fire Emblem. You just keep going down the list.
Right, like Final Fantasy, Dragon Warrior, Dragon Quest was originally inspired by that too. It was like, basically, if you took Hori, who was kind of like a tabletop nerd who was working at Shonen Jump as a writer, he gets the artist Toriyama to like draw up all this stuff, and I can't remember the composer's name, but those three all worked with Jump, and they hopped into it together, working with the people at Enix. And it was hugely inspired of just like, what if we took the ideas from D&D but gave it our own spin, right? Yeah. But Final Fantasy, the original, is literally just like, go and play it if you've never played the original Final Fantasy. Even if the modern ones turn you off, you will see that this is just a homebrew or D&D campaign. Like the characters
you can actually find a Japanese version. The true Japanese version actually legit follows almost down to the wire on how it really works. If your best bet on that one, if you're gonna point people, I would say try the PlayStation and the Game Boy Advance version. If you can find it through illegal means are.
Yeah, I think Dawn of Souls is probably the best way
Yeah.
to play Final Fantasy 1.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Dawn of Souls is phenomenal, and there are other stuff that and Final Fantasy went its own route, and then created the Potato Children. That is that weird amalgamation in 14, which is.
Oh, you're talking about like the Lalafell?
Yeah.
They had one of those
yeah.
earlier than that. They actually had the Taru Taru in 11. Because all the 14 races are pretty much just redos of previous races that have existed in Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I think they also introduced the cat people. I don't know.
Which was also there were the Mithra in 11 as well.
Yeah, I stopped paying attention.
Yeah.
Bring us back
yeah.
more Breath of Fire. That's what anyway.
What we're gonna reroute back is to continue talking about Dragon Age. It's because it
Okay.
just from what I've seen doesn't
Yeah.
feel like Dragon Age.
No,
is a
it
big
really
problem.
does feel like Demon Stones.
And that's a
Like
shame.
I can't deny it. It is a shame because this was a phenomenal game. Like, I don't know, Marsupial. We were talking about this not too long ago. Remember, we were having a conversation about how, like, you could have these huge conversations in the original one, and you can build these big relationships. What happened to that? Like, I missed that.
Of what was it? Are we talking
In Dragon Age,
Dragon
remember?
Age.
Yeah, all the program, like, because all the different conversations you can have with somebody, and that huge conversation speeches. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a while.
Yeah,
that
it's
was
been a while.
ago. Yeah, we don't talk that often.
But I'm trying to. Oh shoot, I can't do it that way. I'm trying to figure out if I can play the old and new, like the trailer from 15 years ago of Dragon Age Origins,
Mhm.
and the the new Veilguard one side by side, which would be interesting.
Oh, they're like
But-
specifically
You could-
saying that
if-
they don't want to make an open world game, which I understand from like a marketing perspective why you wouldn't, because there's this. I think it's a kind of like a myth, and it's just because of it's the same with the superhero fatigue, right? That people have open world fatigue, and I think what they're really fatigued of are empty open world games that take too much of your
Yeah.
time, and there's just too many of these things.
Yeah. And Dragon Age, like, riddle me this: was Dragon Age really the OG one open world? I don't think it was.
No, I would
a
consider
lot
it
of
more
ways it
like
was.
an expanding world, which is typical of RPGs, right?
Yeah.
Where you have like this closed
it is.
section, and then after you progress, it opens up, and there's another section you can go to, and the world opens over time, but it slowly expands like going through a book.
Mm. Which is a good way to do an RPG. That's actually the best way to do RPG.
Mhm.
Oh, I think
is to do it.
Pokemon used to nail it with it, with like the gyms and getting like,
Yeah.
like HMs that would let you get to places you couldn't before, and it's like, oh, cool, it's a linear story, but it doesn't feel linear.
Is the new Pokemon that bad? Like, Chad, is the new Pokemon bad?
I probably
is the new Pokemon.
I enjoyed it more than most people did, but I also went in there with more hesitation than most people did too. And despite having the biggest map out of any Pokemon game, it feels the smallest. And part of it is the open world exploration stuff that they give you. And you get everywhere too fast. I like routes. I thought routes were good for Pokemon, right? It kind of gave you this expansive, unwinding adventure. And now it's just like, oh, let's unless I need to grind, let's avoid all the trainer fights, or the Pokemon aren't random encounters. And I'm a big stickler for random encounters. I think they work great. That modern companies just don't know how to use them, right? You can make them cinematic. Like you could go to town with random encounters if you want to, but all the Pokemon are in the world, and I think having enemies wandering around in a game like SMT is perfectly fine. Because it fits the game, it fits like the narrow corridors they're in. Grinding
or Dragon Quest can.
Dragon Quest is fine too.
Quest
Yeah, it can. But like, I don't know, if I'm in an open world and I see enemies, I think
I
they
kind of
kind of make you want to
in,
avoid the
like-
enemies sometimes. You know, it kind of
Yeah.
like takes away from the
Well,
gameplay.
I liked it in Let's Go Eevee because you got bonuses for running into the same Pokemon over and over again
Yeah, yeah.
in a row.
But it's like I feel
See,
actually less immersed
that one-
when I see
that's the one. that everyone's
turn-based
been saying is
battles
the
in
best
the
one.
open world, right? I feel less immersed when
Mhm.
I see turn-based battles in the open world
Mhm.
because I'm going to still go into a scene anyway. Even if the scene is just the camera angle changes and we're fighting in the open world, we're still going into a scene. And it's like I can avoid that. That's a scene that I can just avoid. It's taking up my time. I don't need it. I'm not surprised from that thing being there. Well, like when you have a random encounter, especially let's take like an older Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest game where you're just walking around the map, and the map is the world. So you're imagining this person is covering great distances over the time that you're seeing. Like they're walking across a country to get from point A to point B. Well, of course you're not going to see everything running around on the map. And if you saw like a silhouette on the map, like in a Zelda 2 style, that thing could be miles and miles away from you. You wouldn't even see that thing there. And if something just randomly pops up on you, well, we're now going from a super bird's eye view where we know where you are to your actual location. You were surprised by that encounter. Your brain fills in the rest of it. I think from like an RPG, from a storytelling perspective, most games, random encounters are better. Now, there are games like Paper Mario, where there's actual interactivity with the enemies in the map and everything, where I think having those wandering enemies work really well because they're actually incorporating the gameplay and the environment together. But most people aren't
Just don't
thinking
breath of
about
fire
that.
to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just don't breath fire to wherever every 2 steps. It's like doo-doo-doo-doo. Great
Yeah.
game. I'm not dissing
kinda-
breath of fire too, but
I kind of
Yes,
like I kind of like Dragon Quest 11, where you can, there's a bit of interactivity in that you can sort of sneak up and do like one attack before the enemy sees you,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't avoid them if you want to, but there's good reasons to fight enemies on the overworld. And then when you do, it goes into a battle screen.
Well, my friend said, like, I think it looks like Dragonstone, which is Demonstone. He thinks Dragon Age looks more like the Lord of the Ring fighter that came out. Well, I don't remember the name of that one where you kind of get active battles as you move around the field. And again, it's another EA game, and it's, I don't know, you're gonna do something like this. A lot of people stayed for Dragon Age's gameplay. Let's be honest. The OG Dragon Age, although it had a lot of strategy, a lot of thought, it wasn't exactly the best gameplay out there.
Yeah.
Like compared to other stuff that existed at the time. There were other games that did it a lot better. But what Dragon Age did that was phenomenal was the relationships, the values, the conversations, the things you could do in there. Like, I'll play Mass Effect 1 still to this day. I don't want to play 2, 3, or the other ones because I've played them, I'm done.
Yeah.
That says something,
Do you want to add in
Can I
Ethereal?
share screen again?
Oh, okay.
Go
You want
for
to
it,
share?
if you want
we can
to.
do that. Yeah, we can add in Ethereal.
Yeah, you can.
Let me switch us back to full screen. I was going to say when talking about non-random encounters, I play a lot of Honkai Star Rail, and similar to SMT, I think that's a game that works without it. But it's like narrow zones, and there's a lot of interactivity. Like you get to decide how you want to start a battle. So I think it works. I just want any type of mechanic, even talking about like the original Dragon Age mechanics and how it wasn't necessarily the best game, but it was still fun. I want developers to really just think about how all the elements of the game work together, right? Whether it's the story elements, the graphics of the game, the art style, battle itself, anything. You're trying to make almost like a unified piece of interactive art, right? Like an experience for the gamer. And it seems like
And
a
the
lot of
music.
them will think of maybe one aspect of the game, and then they'll just try to let everything else fall into place and not really care.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did you hear what about the music for Yasuke in the new Assassin's Creed game?
Yes.
I did not.
Oh yeah. Let's save that for later. That is a good.
Okay.
Thanks for bringing that up because I want to talk about that too. But I wanted to show the Dragon Age Origins trailer, one of the trailers from 2010. This is like the Ultimate Edition.
Yeah.
And have people tell me like which looks better, this or the new one, and which, does the new one look anything like?
No, this looks
sequel to this
phenomenal.
game?
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
right?
looks phenomenal. Okay, this is one. Yeah, this is one. Okay, I remember this now.
This is Origins, Dragon Age Origins.
Yeah. This is one. Yeah, for a second there, I was looking at it and it reminded me, like, is this two? Oh, okay, this is one.
Yeah, this is a trailer from 2010, and I mean,
I know
it's
right?
not. It's obviously not super like high def, but
Yeah.
it's like,
But in some
it looks
ways,
fantastic.
because
People
people
look like
use
people.
the word fidelity wrong these days. In some ways, this is higher fidelity because the edges of the characters stand out. They look like people, but they're still stylized just enough that they don't look uncanny.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just make out everything that's going on. Even in that like shadowy
into a
transformation dust cloud, you can make out everything that's going on in this trailer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very clear, even though it's like in the middle of a blizzard.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say though, I would love to play a cool shapeshifter game that actually lets you move more crazy and over the top.
Mm-hmm.
That lets you turn into spiders and stuff. Then play like okay, Prototype was good, but I want something where a fantasy setting where you could turn into all these different like shape shifting and stuff. That'd be kind of cool.
I want Rare to make another cameo, but incorporate stuff like that into the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Because cameo was fun.
Yeah, I remember. This is actually part of the game. You actually have to do this mission. I think that's actually one of the missions, if I remember correctly. It's like that. This is on the mountain where you're going to get the ashes of Andraste.
Secret Ashes cinematic trailer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this like an add-on or something?
No,
Or I guess
no.
maybe
This
this
is
is added.
this is part of the main story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is what they have. So when you go to like Dragon Age Origins Definitive Edition on Steam, this is what the main trailer that they show. And I mean, that's pretty freaking awesome. Makes me want to play it again. I haven't played it in like 15 years or whatever, but now we're gonna play the new one, the Veilguard, which was renamed from Dreadwolf.
Yeah.
I think because they wanted to focus on the heroes and the different personalities and how fucking
That's
gay
okay.
they are.
Soon we're gonna get to put
That'd be
just
the-
the word instead of veil. We're just gonna change it to FAIL for fail guard because it's not gonna sell.
Yeah, that's good. And I mean, the graphics are higher definition, but they're like cartoons now.
Yeah. Well,
This is
I'm not
like
gonna
World of
lie.
Warcraft.
I don't mind myself a short stack, so.
Yeah. Well, and I like stylization,
me like girls.
but it just doesn't feel like it's the same franchise.
Not the same
right?
series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that? That's like right out of
Like
one
if
of
they
those
had
World
the
of Warcraft
license,
spin-offs, like Hearthstone or
Yeah.
something.
right? And they were
Well, we
actually
were
making
looking
a
into
D&D game. Like this would be an okay
Yeah.
style for a D&D game.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Disagree, 100%.
No, you disagree. Oh,
What?
okay.
Yeah, I'm no. I'll be honest. I love myself my D&D, and I think if we're gonna do a D&D game, fuck this crap. Go back to old school, like original art style from the OG Conan the Barbarian era, and make a D&D game that has that art style. None of this crap. Let's go old school. I'm talking OG, man.
Oh, I'm fine with that
Like,
too.
yeah,
And
I
here's
want
the
something
thing.
like that.
Here's something I want to point out.
Mhm.
That first trailer, it didn't show the names of anyone. I have no idea who those people are. I just know they're awesome, kick-ass fighters, and there's that girl who did the magic and the bow and arrow and fighting a giant dragon, and it just looked brutal, like they were shoving their swords into people's chests.
Meanwhile, this one's doing like
That's
the
even-
Borderlands callouts as if these people are supposed to matter, but it's a
Yeah, a
trailer, so you have
Borderlands.
no
No,
investment
no.
in
Do you
any
know what
of
that
these.
was? That was
yeah,
literally.
I have no idea
that-
who these people are.
You know what this was? That was what was that trailer? Remember the Dungeons and Dragons trailer from that movie?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And you know how they had,
Steve?
Bard. Yeah, they had Bard. They had that guy. This is what that reminds me of.
I'm like,
Yeah.
you get 2 seconds of this fucking dragon.
Yeah.
That like, what is with its arms? It's got its hands like, or front legs, whatever. Like, how is it holding its legs there? That's so weird. It's like it's a dog,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, kind of.
It's so strange.
Dragon
It's like,
hunter.
where is? Ah,
But like even that one
mean,
trailer, it's
well-
like it's almost like they took it because the opening of Borderlands, Borderlands is kind of almost like a tabletop game turned into a first-person shooter in a way. Like the trailer literally had
is a
all the
little bit.
characters doing a thing, and it'd be like their name and what
Oh.
their role is, like Lilith the Siren in there, and that's kind of okay, sort of. But there's like nothing about this that is actually selling the characters to you, and they also just don't matter to you yet. Like that's something that's better after you've started the game.
yeah. And the stupid trope of the chandelier coming down. It's like, yeah. Go back to this. Like, start with this, or have this be earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
Where was it? Shoot.
Yeah,
and, like, go
define
from
the
there.
Gods,
I like
define
that.
the gods, and then do
Like
that. Yeah.
there. Like that's pretty kick ass, but then they show it for a split second and it's like,
At the
okay,
end.
well, I want to see what happens with that. Yeah. What happens with that gigantic dragon?
Marsupial, could you do me a solid and get some old Dark Star, Dark Sun art and put that up and just see what I'm talking about for D&D? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, Jesus, like that's the art. That's what I want to see in my D&D game. I want to see badass, half naked women wearing leather thongs with half naked men carrying giant swords at their entire bodies. I want to see a D&D game like that. I don't want to see this. This is World of Warcraft.
Yeah, we need more Howard inspiration in it, some more Hyborian
Yeah.
age.
Yeah, we need.
Well, all the
more
men
of
are
that.
super muscular,
Yeah,
and all the women
Yeah.
are super hot.
let's get Conan
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah, I want a good. If I want to see a D&D game, I want to see something where the armor looks badass, like, or you know what a good. I've been saying it for years. Give us a Legacy of Kain game. I want a remaster of Legacy of Kain.
I
want it
do,
done
but I
right.
also don't, right? Because they actually are
Yeah.
bringing that franchise back, but it's... Oh, sorry, this is the wrong one. It's under Embracer right now.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh.
That and Tomb Raider. They want to bring both those franchises, and it's like,
Well, okay, the remaster to Tomb Raider was actually pretty good. I can't say that was awful.
Yeah, but what was the last 2 games that no one can remember what those things they were called? Was it Shadow of the Goliath, or was that? Oh my goodness!
Well, no,
Yeah,
there was
okay,
a
not
Shadow
even
of
sure.
the Tomb Raider was one of them, but no, I didn't like.
Yeah.
I thought that series had potential. I still didn't care for the first game, but it's like, okay, well, it feels like she'll at least grow into the Lara we know, and then she never did. So I kind of just hate that whole trilogy from the reboot series. It's just kind of bad. But I love Tomb Raider. Like, I even went back and bought all of the old ones on Steam so I could play them again. And I don't think they'll ever recapture it. I mean, they did an okay remaster, but like for a new game, I doubt they'll ever recapture it again.
I'd love to get Anniversary Collection back. That's the one I picked. I accidentally picked up Legacy when I wanted the not the Shadow of the second Tomb Raider game, because I even though Lara Croft looks absolutely ugly in that game, I still think the gameplay in that is phenomenal. What was that called? Rise of Tomb Raider. Like I don't like the way she looks. No, I don't like the way she
Yeah.
looks. I think.
Well,
the
that's why,
OG,
like I said, I think that whole series kind of bothered me. I think Tomb Raider Underworld was probably the last one I had a lot of fun in.
Mhm. Yeah, I can understand that. And I can't deny that the Anniversary was the one I loved. I thought Anniversary was probably the best Tomb Raider. Legend is very glitchy, and I don't know. I have a real hatred for that one because of some of the stupid ideas they have. Because there's quite a few scenes where there's a death trap coming your way, and they go into a cutscene, and then they give you back control. So you're like, what? and you freaking, oh, we're reversing the controls on you, haha, and you just die over and over and over again. So that's not fun. But Anniversary I did love. I thought Anniversary was phenomenal. I thought the remasters were really well done. I played them at my buddy's house. Rise was pretty good. Tomb Raider sucked only because of the button mashing crap. If they had took all that button mashing out, I think the game would have been great.
But yeah, Fitzgerald was actually right that they didn't want to make a Tomb Raider game because they don't like the term Tomb Raider or something. That changed it. So she's I don't know.
Part of it too is
preserver of.
I hate to say it.
Is a ripoff of Tomb Raider.
Yeah, well, Uncharted's a ripoff of everything. Like
yeah.
Nathan Drake is just basically a Han Solo version of Indiana Jones.
Yeah, he's just the average exploration B movie protagonist. That's all he is. Yeah. But I mean, Laura kind of is too, just in girl form, right? Because most of the people who would do those type of archaeology B movies, there was always some like rich, wealthy person who did archaeology as a hobby and got involved in these things, which is exactly what Laura is. She doesn't need to do.
Oh,
this.
You mean real life?
Yeah.
No, I wish I was joking, but that is a real thing. Look it up, boys and girls. A lot of the archaeologists out there, that's some old money doing work.
The Bone Wolf.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Yeah, like there's so much they could do with Tomb Raider, and so much they could do with Legacy of Kain. Like I'm really sad.
So here's the issue with Legacy of Kain, right? It's not even that they're trying to bring that back. It's specifically the name that they were tossing around, and instead of focusing on like the world as a whole, and maybe even Kain, they were specifically talking around Soul Reaver. That was what they were tossing around, which they're good games, but it's like, I don't know if I'd want to revisit Soul Reaver. I kind of just want you to expand on the entirety of the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the thing. Like, I want, because the Legacy of Kain games are great, but they are, oof. You want to talk about glitch fests. They need some real love. And it would be nice if that real love was given to, remaster the games, make the gameplay a little bit more smoother. Unfortunately, like I said, we've lost Renee.
Yeah.
And I think we lose no, we didn't lose Caleb yet. Caleb's still kicking around doing voice acting. We've lost a couple of the big voice actings for this. And like some of these guys did such good voice acting.
Yeah, to let you know, Marsupial, if you've never played, Legacy of Kain is basically just Dark Legend of Zelda, is like the best way to put it. Because even if you play like the original like Blood Omen or whatever, it is a top-down game that is just like a Legend of Zelda game, but with like options that you wouldn't have had in there. And then the Soul Reaver franchise is a 3D game that, remarkably, a lot of the mechanics remind you of Ocarina of Time, just over on the PlayStation. It's kind of just like a competitor series to Zelda, but it's centered around like this dark world with vampires and other mythical things, and the story gets to be pretty dark too. It's fun.
Yeah.
Apparently, it was developed by Crystal Dynamics.
Yes, it was. That's why it's over at Embracer, the exact company I was complaining about, Crystal Dynamics earlier.
Yeah, I know. I was upset because it was under THQ Nordic for a bit, and then all of a sudden gone. I'm like, no! Return! Give it back to THQ Nordic. They're actually been doing some good job with some of their games. And I fear, like I said, that this... I'm kind of happy EA didn't get it because EA was trying, and I'm really happy EA didn't get it.
Honestly, though, would it be worse than them being under Embracer, though, at this point? I'm not sure. I think it's a coin toss.
There was a time I actually legitimately was talking to people, like, this was a long time ago. I know we're getting a new Shadow Man coming out, which is making me nervous. And if, I won't deny it, a part of me wants to, like, if they don't do anything with Embracer, like, can anybody make a bid? Is there an Elon Musk out there that can, buy Legacy of Kain and just go for it?
I
It's
wish.
like if I had the money, if I won the lottery, I'm putting a bid of $1 million for Legacy of Kain. Give me the franchise. Just fuck you. Give me. You're not doing
Yeah,
anything with the franchise. Give me the franchise.
Oh yeah, Marsupial wants to do that with the Ultima franchise at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's Electronic Arts doing with it? Nothing.
Nothing. And Ultima is just. I know, and you know what? That still pisses me off. I totally agree with you.
And you know what? You know what's been really awesome the last few years? Like they came out with not only a Bard's Tale 4, but they I guess remade Bard's Tale 1 with modern graphics. They've now remade Wizardry, that just came out, the original Wizardry, and Shadowgate. And I'm like, they could totally do that with Ultima 1. They could make it a modern game.
Yeah. And unlike Wizardry, you wouldn't feel like your balls were. Wouldn't feel like your balls were in a vice. Like it works, right? Like Ultima 1 doesn't. Ultima 1 doesn't feel like someone slowly twisting them with a freaking.
Oh, and especially go to like
with
Wizardry
buzzsaw.
8, and if you
Oh
just
my
want to experience
Lord.
hell.
No. I don't. This is why I don't play Wizardry. Like it's suffering. I don't.
But they could do, I mean, if you owned the IP, you could do all kinds of things with, obviously the original Ultima 1 is very, very limited. One character, you only fight one thing at a time. You could do dungeon crawling, you could do,
Like,
have
you could improve
companions. All kinds of
you could do lots. And honestly, you know what I wouldn't mind doing with the Ultima series? I'd kind of amalgamate it all together and then do a complete remaster and build up the whole saga.
Oh, could you have
And
the way the dungeon crawling was in Underworld?
Yeah. Well.
Oh, yeah.
I
No,
love
yeah,
the
but
dungeon
not
crawling
even-
in Ultima Underworld.
Yeah, Ultima. I would do Ultima Underworld as a separate entity, but I would take one. I'd take one all the way up to before the not the false prophet. The one after the false prophet. What was that one there?
Black
It's been a
Gate.
while, Mars. Was it Black? Yeah. Just before that, and I'd have everything up to false prophet. Do a complete remaster, because then you can build up the Avatar arc and do segments, very similar to what they did with the not Hero Quest, King's Quest. The remaster of King's Quest. Yeah. And if you're, that it's not a perfect option, but at least it's a functional option that could work. And I think a lot of people would have a lot more fun with it in that light, because then you could actually play segments. You could do each adventure as a DLC variant. You could still use the same world a little bit and kind of move on from each one. And I know time travel and other crazy stuff happens, but you could step off on that. Like, I guess in theory, you could also do Ultima 1 and 2 and then 3 as its own.
Time travel
5.
sometimes kills me
Yep.
when it comes to the world building of certain things. It's actually one of the reasons why I don't like specifically the second Soul Reaver, is because of what time travel did to the Legacy of Kain world.
Oh, it did everything to Legacy of Kain,
Yeah.
because after Soul Reaver 2, if you count Soul Reaver 2, and then you go to Blood Omen 2, that's timeline is shifted.
Yeah.
So that's how you have Blood Omen 2, and then Blood Omen, and that is a confusing fuck. I don't know. Like I said, there's a lot you could do with the Ultima franchise.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, we could go into that for hours, but my ultimate goal would be to completely rewrite 8 and 9 so that they work with Ultima 7.
oh, that's not a bad idea. Yeah, because didn't they ultimately like drop the ball with someone? Like, I know one of them.
Yeah,
was,
they
like,
got they got bought out by Electronic Arts, and then it all went to shit.
Yeah. Well, here's another question. Like,
At least Ultima Online continued.
for
Yeah,
a
that's
short
still
period.
live. It's still live to this day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Well,
Never
congrats to him.
stopped.
Oh well, that's awesome. My thing is, if we were to do this, I wouldn't mind seeing the remasters of the side games, like the pulp noir stuff they were planning on doing, like the dinosaur one, remake of the
like
Space
Martian
Lamar.
Dreams?
Yeah. I like
Yeah.
those games. I don't know why people like. I know they're short, but I like those games. I thought those games were fun.
Well, just real quick, I guess,
Mhm.
did you want to talk a little bit about the latest controversy with Assassin's Creed?
We could. Yeah, we've got a little bit of time left.
Okay.
Since Ethereal brought it up.
Same time you turn around with a new one.
Set it up
Well,
then.
apparently, yeah, the Japanese people are not happy with Assassin's Creed, in that they basically took the Yasuke character and just the fact that he just brutally kills a lot of Japanese people, which I mean, what else is he gonna do? But they have like
Yeah, but there's a
villagers
difference between
bowing to
Japanese
him,
also
Mhm.
and
and
like
killing Japanese.
Yeah.
and every time, like I guess every time there's some action, they do like hip hop music.
Yeah,
And it's like that is so racist.
No,
But the worst part
did
is-
they really do hip? Did they
It's
actually
kind of.
do hip hop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all the love. Think about it. Samurai Champloo brought together all the love of Japanese and black people, and now they're tearing it apart with this.
Or like,
this
there's
Assassin's
also
Creed.
Afro Samurai, which a lot of people love.
No Japanese people like Afro Samurai.
I know a few that do.
I'm joking.
but
I'm
the thing
completely
is-
joking. But yeah,
A lot of Japanese people actually genuinely like the character of Yasuke in history because he's like an interesting little side note. It's something that's like just different from everything else at the time. And
yeah.
because they genuinely like this interesting little footnote to history, makes them especially upset because you're completely destroying what that footnote in history means in its entirety.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially what ends up happening to him in the end.
Just the fact that everyone in the game like reveres this guy instead of kind of, because like in real life he was just kind of this weird novelty. They'd never seen anyone
Yeah.
like him.
And
Okay,
at best,
can we
he
be
would be an
honest?
equal to a peasant of that area. That's the best it would happen if they were to see him.
No,
because he didn't
was-
hold
he
any
was- he
rank.
was- yeah, he was
a vassal.
Yeah, no, he was a servant. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
considered fall under a servant class. So he was a little higher than a villager. If I
But the problem is
remember
most
He had
villagers were
some
also
policy, but
often
that was-
just servants as well. Like a lot of them had that rank. So like most of them, like nobody would be bowing to him, right? Like the average
Yeah.
person might acknowledge him if you were to walk through, or because he is serving a master, maybe somebody would bow if he was delivering a message, but it wouldn't be to him. It would be to the person that sent the message, and he's just a representative of him at the time.
Okay, can I
That's a good
be
Mhm.
frank here?
Yeah.
And this is gonna
Yeah.
Okay, hopefully this doesn't affect Marsupial at all and anything he's endeavors. Let's be honest. Yasuke, hard honest truth. Yasuke was the European equivalent of a dwarf.
Why would,
Okay.
why would that
Honest.
affect me? I'm 6 feet tall. I'm not a dwarf.
No. Affect anything you're doing online because I do fear that but that is legit what Yasuke was. Remember, there were dwarves that were knighted. Remember, there were dwarves that got to marry lords and ladies and have kids. Remember, there were dwarves that wore plate mail and carried spear and carried little lancettes and rode on
Well,
the
so
little
like
horses.
we could say that he definitely went up in societal rank when he became a servant, because before that, he wasn't the feudal equivalent of a servant in Japan. He was a literal slave at the lowest level from a European perspective before he got
Yes,
there.
he was.
So he actually
But yeah,
became
but this is
slightly
a-
more equal to like your random serf in society once
Yeah.
he became part of Oda's camp. But that's it.
But this is a great point. It's an Assassin's Creed game. You're gonna place it in Japan. The obvious thing to do is make the main character a ninja assassin.
Which could
Right?
still
Yeah,
be
they
samurai
did-
because
Why did they-
most ninja or samurai or most people who would do assassinations and would take the title of a ninja were trusted by the lord, so it would probably be a samurai.
Well, here's a big question. Here's a big question. Oh, all the Assassin's Creeds that they've done, and they've always kind of done weird diversity stuff here and there. Famous one was the was it Black Flag? No, it was the one Assassin's Creed, the one where they the one where they're going in like between the Civil War, or no, the Revolutionary War of America.
Oh yeah, I know
You
what you're
got
talking about. Yeah,
playing
yeah,
like
yeah.
the half Native American, half this, half
And they
that.
actually
It's
had like 3 games about that at the same time. Like there was like a PSP 1, 2.
yeah,
You know.
yeah.
And isn't
It's not.
Assassin's Creed? Isn't it like a sci-fi? Like you're going back in time?
Well,
or
they
something?
Yes, it
deleted
is.
most of the sci-fi out of the
Mhm.
story. Because
Yeah.
they
Oh.
retroactively changed what the story is.
Yeah, it's no longer that. Again, I've been saying they should have took that out in the first place. The
Yeah.
reason they, I keep hearing the rumors.
But now
about
it's
the
more
reason they
myth
did.
and fantasy because they brought
Yeah.
some of like the Greek myths and stuff into it.
Yeah, they brought Vikings into it and stuff, and like I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah,
mind.
they
Like I
don't know
said,
what they're doing.
yeah, like the Viking stuff. It's like it like people would have complained if they would have had like when they did the Viking stuff. People would have complained if they would have had a black Viking.
Yeah, and
So
also
they didn't
people
do it.
liked Valhalla though because of for the most part it felt very Nordic. So it's like, okay, you thought you learned your lesson somewhat with Valhalla. Why did you switch back around when it came to this new one?
Yeah, and if you're gonna go in the, like, for example, when they did the one in London, where they were going in between,
Syndicate,
like if
yeah.
you're gonna have Syndicate, if you're gonna do, why not have Syndicate have it be a black, have a black man in there, be one of the guys. Like you could have, that would have worked in Syndicate because that's right around that time where there were a large induction of black people that were working.
The worst part is because like Yasuke stands out like a sore thumb. So how is he ever going to get away with what he's doing?
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, it's like,
Oh yeah.
And everybody knows him too, right? We're talking about like most people
It's like
doubt
they're
him,
gonna
but,
worship him and
like this is
let
a
him do whatever he
known
wants.
oddball servant of the guy
Yeah.
who is uniting Japan together. Like everybody knows who this
Yeah.
person is. There's no
Yeah,
way
and
you
that's
don't
what-
stand out.
well, that's the same thing. That's the same thing with the guy who was the freaking, like I said, the dwarves of their era of royalty back in the day. And I'm not dissing dwarves. That
But
was
it's like
something that
it's
they
the one
legitimately
person
did.
who's like 4 foot nothing walking around. Of course we know who it was.
Yeah, you're gonna know
Mhm.
this guy, and it's like you don't use him. He's not the He's not the character. He's not. Don't do that. And I just kind of think it's funny that they want to use these characters because it's like, don't use a named character because he's popular. Like I hate this. I
Mhm.
hate this idea with any of this stuff, like historical figures, because then it's the same reason I got angry over the whole the Anne Boleyn thing.
Yeah.
With that document where they're making this and they're calling, we're going to make it a documentary, and I'm like, well, no, you're not. You're creating fan fiction. The Great, I love The Great. I think The Great's a good TV show, but how many black and Muslim Russians were there at
Or
that
they
period?
recently did Troy had that same problem too.
Troy.
Right?
Yeah.
When they were doing like the Trojan
No,
War.
Well, like Cleopatra is another good example.
Yeah.
I can't say much about Yasuke because I don't know much about Yasuke.
Nobody does.
I can say a lot about.
There's like
yeah.
very, very few inscriptions about him that is saved. You can
Yeah.
put them all on one page.
And yeah, people have written books about him being a samurai.
Yeah.
That's basically it. It's a lot of fan fiction in a lot of ways, and I'm not.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
wouldn't
it takes
use
like 7 years
Yasuke.
for training just to become a samurai. Then
I
the
would
fact
use
that
him,
you have
just
to
not
get
as a main
the
character.
sword.
I would use
No,
him
I
in
would-
the same
yeah,
way that
yeah.
they use like Kikero as a character anytime they're like in Rome or something
So-
like that, right?
So,
I would have him
this
be
is
this,
Ubisoft, right?
yeah, this interesting side character that you could form a relationship with, because maybe you are under like Nobunaga's ranks, right? And that you're doing this
So-
stuff, and you're just a no-name person, and then you could interact with Yasuke.
So riddle me this: isn't this the same company that has the rights to the Tenchu series, or is that somebody else?
I don't think so.
Am I wrong? Because my
have to look
thought
that up.
process is, my thought process is, why not use ninjas from other video game sources that could legitimately be played at this point? Why not use
Tenchu
Dutch? No, I apologize.
is
I think I screwed
Acquire,
up. Okay.
and FromSoft. It was Nintendo. I think it might be under Microsoft now.
Okay.
I don't know. I actually don't. I think it's just been published, but under a bunch of different people. So Ubisoft has published it at one point, and so has Sega. I think it's just a FromSoft game, and they just go under different people when they need to.
Okay, but but like use. Why not use Goemon? Why not use like that? Would have been that. No one would have been upset about them using Goemon. Goemon, and maybe Fubuki or Habuki. Like the Toei games have done it right. Like all their ninjas are like well-known named ninjas.
Well, that's like another problem with the chick, right? So instead of making her like an actual kunoichi, which they should, but then that would mean, oh, well, what did they do? They usually disguise themselves as like geisha and prostitutes, and they got their information that way from working with the Lord. Well, it's like, oh, well, we don't want to do that because that would be sexist. It was accurate.
Well, there were female that had some stuff, but it wasn't anything amazing. But like, if you're gonna do this, do it with these named characters. If you're gonna use named characters from history, quote unquote, you could like. There's so much you could play off of, which would work. Like if you had Goemon. Man, the Japanese people would love you. Goemon is such a popular ninja.
I think there is an issue with that, though, on why a lot of people don't use them. And it's for trademark reasons more than anything. And you can blame...
No, Goemon is not trademark. Goemon is not trademark.
There are people who have trademarks towards him because you can trademark titles. Yeah. So, like, you could use him as a character, but you definitely could never use him in the name. And part of that is because Konami, after buying Hudson Soft, has the Mystical Ninja franchise, and they have trademarks towards the name Goemon specifically. So, you can still use him on whatever title they're giving it, but you would have to not use his name particularly in any of the titling. Or
wait. They have the rights. Okay, this floors me. They have the rights to a real person.
Yes, sort of. That happens a lot with trademarks, but they only stops you when it comes to titling. Right? That doesn't stop you from using a real person in your game or anything like that.
Okay. Like, I just...
It's kind of like with public domain stuff. Anybody can make a story involving the mythical Thor, but because of Marvel's trademarks, you can't just title your thing Thor.
Yeah, you have to do Kid Thor, for example, with, for example, the Invincibles franchise.
Well, we're out of time, by the way.
This is we've gone over. I thought it was a riveting discussion. Thank you guys for coming on, but I'm going to close us out now. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please, once again, share it out with somebody else who might like it. They can watch in the past. Hopefully subscribe and join us in conversation in the future. And if they really enjoy the show, or you, particularly watching right now, you can give a donation to streamlabs.com/vomitoriumlive. Even if you do it in the past or in the future, whenever the show's not on, I'll read out your chat or whatever in the next time, which will be on Monday. So see you then.
Yep. See you then.
Right.
Boys, season 4.
At myself through someone else, like no one else. Oh, this pain and hatred, never knowing from whence it came. I'm playing this game, it's always the same. In all this, there's one thing I could ask you, that you should always remain true. Even if I'm gone, you still remember. It's just hard when nothing's right and everything say.